You know what's worse than being homeless? Being made homeless by your own family. And you know what's even worse than that? Being made homeless by the woman your son married, the mother of your grandchildren, the person you welcomed into your life with open arms and an open heart. That's exactly what happened to me 3 months ago. My daughter-in-law, Jessica, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Pack your things. You have until Sunday to get out of my house." But here's what she didn't know. Here's what nobody knew. That house? It was never really hers. And what did I do next? Well, let's just say when I came back 1 week later with a real estate buyer, the look on her face was worth every sleepless night, every tear I cried, every moment of humiliation she put me through. But before I tell you how I took everything away from the woman who threw me out like garbage, you need to understand the whole story. Because this isn't just about revenge. This is about what happens when kindness is mistaken for weakness, when sacrifice is mistaken for stupidity, and when a mother's love is exploited until there's nothing left to take. My name is Dorothy, but everyone calls me Dot. I'm 68 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I knew what family meant. I thought I understood loyalty, love, and gratitude. Turns out, I didn't know anything at all. I was married to my husband Frank for 39 years before a heart attack took him from me 4 years ago. Just like that. 1 minute he was mowing the lawn, complaining about the heat. The next minute, he was gone. We had one son together, Michael, my baby boy, my whole world. And maybe that was my first mistake. Maybe I loved him too much. Maybe I protected him too much. Maybe I never let him grow up enough to see the real world for what it is. Frank and I worked hard our whole lives. He was a union electrician, worked every day for 40 years without calling in sick once. I worked as a grocery store manager, standing on my feet for 8-hour shifts, dealing with difficult customers and inventory and everything in between. We saved every penny. We lived below our means, we drove old cars, clipped coupons, never took fancy vacations. Why? Because we wanted to leave Michael something. We wanted him to have opportunities we never had. We wanted to give him a better life. When Michael turned 25, he met Jessica at a bar. She was 23, pretty, and according to Michael, she was the one. They dated for 6 months, and then one day Michael came to us with news. Jessica was pregnant. They were getting married. Frank wasn't happy about the order of things, but what could we do? We loved our son. We wanted to support him. So we threw them a wedding, paid for everything. $10,000 for a ceremony and reception that Jessica planned down to the last detail. The flowers had to be imported peonies. The cake had to be from some fancy bakery in the city. The dress cost $3,000 alone. But we paid. Because that's what parents do, right? They had the baby, a beautiful little girl they named Sophie. She's 4 years old now, and she's the light of my life. Or at least she was. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how it all fell apart. When Sophie was born, Michael and Jessica were living in a tiny apartment, 1 bedroom, barely enough space for the 3 of them. Jessica complained constantly. The walls were thin, the neighbors were loud, there was no yard for Sophie to play in. On and on and on. Frank and I talked about it. We had a house, a 3-bedroom house that we'd paid off years ago. We didn't need all that space. It was just the 2 of us rattling around in all those empty rooms. So we made them an offer. We told Michael and Jessica they could move into our house with us. We'd all live together. They'd have the 2 bedrooms upstairs for them and Sophie. Frank and I would take the master bedroom on the main floor. We'd share the kitchen, the living room, everything. It would be like the old days, like when families actually lived together and helped each other instead of everyone being isolated in their own separate boxes. Jessica seemed hesitant at first, but Michael was excited. "Mom, Dad, are you sure?" he kept asking. We were sure. We wanted to help. We wanted to be close to our granddaughter. We wanted to be a family. They moved in when Sophie was 6 months old, and at first, it was wonderful. I'd wake up in the morning and hear Sophie babbling in her crib. I'd make breakfast for everyone. Jessica would come downstairs with Sophie, and we'd all eat together, like a real family. Frank would play with Sophie in the evenings after work. Michael seemed happy. Jessica seemed happy. I thought we'd found the perfect arrangement. But then Frank died, and everything changed. It happened so suddenly. One Saturday morning, Frank went out to mow the lawn. It was July, hot and humid. I told him to wait until the evening when it cooled down, but he was stubborn. "I'll be fine, Dot," he said. "I've been mowing lawns in the heat for 50 years. An hour later, I heard the mowers stop. I looked out the window and saw him lying on the ground. I ran outside, called 911, tried CPR, everything I'd learned in that class I took at the community center. But it was too late. He was already gone. Massive heart attack. The paramedics said he probably didn't suffer, that it happened too fast for him to even know what was happening. But I suffered. God, did I suffer. Michael and Jessica were there for me during the funeral. They helped with arrangements. They accepted condolences from relatives. They kept Sophie quiet during the service. I was so grateful to have them there, to not be alone in that big house with my grief. After the funeral, Jessica sat me down at the kitchen table. "Dot," she said, taking my hand, "I know this is a terrible time, but we need to talk about practical matters. The house, the bills, how we're going to manage everything." I thought she was offering to help. I thought she was going to tell me not to worry, that they'd take care of me. Instead, she pulled out a notebook and started listing expenses. "The mortgage is paid off, but there's still property taxes, homeowner's insurance, utilities, maintenance," she said. "Frank's pension is gone now. You've just got your Social Security and whatever savings you have left. Michael and I have been talking, and we think the fairest thing is to split all the household expenses 3 ways. 1/3 for us, 1/3 for you. That comes out to about $800 a month for your share." I was still in shock from losing Frank. I couldn't process what she was saying. $800 a month to live in my own house? The house Frank and I had paid for? The house we raised Michael in? The house where every wall held a memory of our life together? But I didn't argue. I was too tired, too sad, too overwhelmed. So I said, okay. I said I'd pay my share. For the first year after Frank died, I paid $800 a month to Jessica. She insisted on handling all the finances, all the bills. "It's easier if one person manages everything," she said. Michael went along with whatever she wanted. He always did. I noticed he'd changed since marrying her. He used to be decisive, strong, and independent. But with Jessica, he became passive. He'd look to her before answering any question, before making any decision. It was like he'd given her all his power and didn't know how to take it back. I paid my $800 every month, on time. I helped Sophie. I cooked dinner most nights. I cleaned the house, did laundry and grocery shopping. I thought I was pulling my weight. I thought we had a good arrangement. But Jessica started changing. Little comments here and there. "Dot, could you keep it down in the mornings? You're so loud in the kitchen. Dot, we're having friends over tonight, so maybe you could eat in your room? Dot, Sophie doesn't need so many sweets. I'm trying to teach her healthy eating habits." Every comment was like a little cut. None of them big enough to cause a scene, but they added up. I started feeling like a guest in my own home, like I had to tiptoe around, ask permission, apologize for existing. Then came my 67th birthday, about 8 months ago. I didn't expect much. Michael had never been good at remembering dates, and with Frank gone, I figured it would just be another day. But that morning, Jessica came into my room with a folder. Not a birthday card, not a gift, a folder full of papers. "Happy birthday, Dot,"
she said, smiling, that smile that never quite reached her eyes. Michael and I have been talking, and we've decided to make some changes to our living arrangement. We think it's time to formalize things, make everything legal and official. She opened the folder and started explaining. They wanted me to sign a lease agreement. A lease. To live in my own house, the house that Frank and I had bought 30 years ago. The house we raised Michael in. The house where every wall held a memory of our life together. It's just to protect everyone, she said, to make sure we all know where we stand legally. You'll be a tenant, we'll be landlords. Everything will be clear and official. The rent will be $1,200 a month, plus utilities. That's actually a great deal for this neighborhood, Dot. You couldn't find anything comparable for less than $1,500. I couldn't speak. I just stared at her, at this woman holding papers that would turn me into a renter in my own home. "Where's Michael?" I finally managed to ask. "He's at work," she said, "but he knows all about this. We discussed it last night. He agrees it's the right thing to do. Now, you don't have to sign today. It's your birthday, after all, but we'll need an answer by the end of the week. Oh, and Dot, if you decide you don't want to sign, that's okay too, but you'll need to find somewhere else to live. We can't have someone living here without a formal agreement. I'm sure you understand." She left the folder on my bed and walked out. I sat there for an hour, just staring at those papers. Then I called Michael at work. "Michael, honey, did you know about this lease thing?" He sighed. "Mom, Jessica explained it to you." "Yes, but Michael, this is my house. Mine and your father's. Why would I sign a lease for my own house?" There was a long pause. "Mom, it's not really your house anymore. Not technically. Dad's half went to me when he died, and you moved us in. You made us a family unit now. This is our home now, too. Jessica is just trying to make things official, to protect everyone. It's not personal." Not personal. My own son told me that being turned into a tenant in my own home wasn't personal. I hung up without saying goodbye. I looked at those papers again. I started actually reading them this time, not just listening to Jessica's summary. And that's when I saw it. The fine print, the clauses, the stipulations. This wasn't just a simple lease. There were penalties for late payment, rules about guests, restrictions on when I could use common areas, a clause that said they could terminate the lease with 30 days' notice for any reason. Any reason at all. I didn't sign. I told Jessica I needed time to think, time to maybe talk to a lawyer. She didn't like that. The temperature in the house dropped about 20 degrees overnight. Jessica stopped speaking to me except when it was absolutely necessary. Michael avoided me completely. Sophie was kept away from me. "Grandma's busy," I'd hear Jessica say when Sophie asked to play with me. I'd see my granddaughter looking at me from across the room, confused about why I wasn't allowed to hug her anymore, why I couldn't read her bedtime stories anymore. 2 weeks after my birthday, I came home from grocery shopping to find Jessica waiting for me at the door. Her arms were crossed. Her face was cold. "We need to talk, Dot. Now." She led me to the living room where Michael was sitting on the couch, looking at his hands. "Mom, Jessica," he started, but Jessica cut him off. "Let me handle this, Dot." She turned to me. "You haven't signed the lease. You've been avoiding the conversation. So we're going to have it now. Either you sign the papers by tomorrow morning, or you need to leave. It's that simple." "Jessica, this is my house. Mine and Frank's. We bought it. We paid for it. I'm not signing away my rights to live here." She laughed. Actually, I laughed. "Your house?"
Dot, let me explain some facts to you. When Frank died, his half of the house went to Michael. That means Michael owns 50%. Now, since Michael and I are married, and since we've been living here and paying for all the maintenance and improvements for the past 4 years, we have a strong claim to the other 50% too. Any lawyer would tell you that. So this isn't really your house anymore. It's ours. And we're being generous by even offering you the chance to stay. I looked at Michael, my son, my baby boy. Michael, is this what you want? Do you really want to kick your mother out of her home? He wouldn't look at me. He just kept staring at his hands. Mom, Jessica's right. You're being difficult. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Just sign the papers and we can all move forward. Difficult. I was being difficult by not wanting to be a tenant in my own home, by not wanting to pay $1,200 a month plus utilities to live in the house my husband and I had worked our entire lives to pay off. I need to talk to a lawyer, I said. I need to understand my rights. Jessica's face turned hard. Fine. Talk to a lawyer, but you need to be out of here by Sunday. That gives you 5 days. Pack your things and go. You're not welcome here anymore. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're kicking me out? Just like that? Yes, Dot, I am. This is my house, my family, and my rules. You've been nothing but a burden since Frank died. You're old, you're depressing, and frankly, Sophie doesn't need to be around someone so negative all the time. So yes, I'm kicking you out. Be gone by Sunday or I'll have the police remove you. Michael said nothing. He just sat there, letting his wife throw his mother out onto the street. I went to my room and cried. I cried for Frank, for the life we'd built, for the son I thought I'd raised, for the home I was losing. But somewhere in that crying, something else started to grow. Not just sadness, anger, rage, a cold, calculated fury that I didn't even know I was capable of feeling. Frank's voice echoed in my head, something he used to say when someone tried to cheat him on a job. Don't get mad, Dot. Get smart. Figure out the game they're playing, and then play it better. I wiped my tears, I picked up my phone, and I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the best estate and property lawyer in town, a woman named Helen Martinez, who had a reputation for being brilliant and absolutely ruthless when she needed to be. I got an emergency appointment for the next morning. That night, I went through every document I could find. The original deed to the house, Frank's will, bank statements, everything. I packed them all in a folder and took them with me to Helen's office. Helen listened to my story. She looked through my documents, and then she smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a shark that just spotted blood in the water. Mrs. Peterson, she said, your daughter-in-law made a very big mistake. Several, actually. First, when your husband died, his half of the house didn't automatically go to your son. You and Frank own the house as joint tenants with right of survivorship. That means when he died, his share automatically transferred to you. You are the sole owner of that house, 100%. I stared at her. But the will, didn't it lay everything to Michael? Helen shook her head. The will covered assets that weren't jointly owned. The house was jointly owned, which supersedes the will. Your son has no legal claim to that house. None. Zero. Your daughter-in-law has been collecting rent from you for a house you fully own. She's been threatening to evict you from your own property. And she's been doing it because she assumed you didn't know your rights. The relief was overwhelming, but then the confusion set in. But why didn't Michael know this? Didn't we have a lawyer handle Frank's estate? Helen nodded. You did, but if you didn't specifically ask about the house, and if Michael was the executor, he may have gotten incomplete information. Or more likely, he knew but didn't tell Jessica. Or Jessica knew, but was hoping you didn't. Either way, The law is clear. That house is yours. So what do I do? I asked. Helen leaned back in her chair. Well, that depends on what you want. Do you want to just move back in and assert your rights? Do you want to evict them? Do you want to sell the house and be done with all of them? Or, she paused, that shark's smile returning, do you want to teach them a lesson they'll never forget? I thought about Jessica's face, the coldness, the cruelty, the way she'd taken advantage of me when I was grieving, the way she'd turned my son against me, the way she'd kept my granddaughter away from me. I want option 4. I want them to understand exactly what they've done. I want them to feel what I felt. Helen pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to leave on Sunday, just like she demanded. You're not going to fight it. You're not going to argue. You're going to pack your things and go stay with a friend or at a hotel. Let them think they won. Let them think they got away with it. Then what? I asked. Helen smiled wider. Then you're going to put the house up for sale. As the legal owner, which you are, you have every right to sell your property. We'll list it quietly with a real estate agent I trust. We'll price it to move fast. And when we have a buyer, you're going to show up with that buyer, the real estate agent, and me. We're going to knock on the door of your house, and we're going to inform your son and daughter-in-law that they have 30 days to vacate the property because it's been sold. The image of Jessica's face when that happened was almost enough to make me smile. Almost. But where will I live? I asked. Helen thought for a moment. Do you have any other assets? Any savings? I nodded. Frank had a life insurance policy, $200,000. I haven't touched it. I've been living off Social Security and the small pension from my grocery store job. And I have about $80,000 in savings that Frank and I had put away. Helen did some mental math. Okay, so you have substantial resources. Here's what I suggest. You sell the house. It's probably worth about $450,000 in this market. You take that money, plus your life insurance payout and savings, and you buy yourself a nice condo. Something smaller, easier to maintain, in a community where you can make friends and have activities. You set yourself up comfortably for the rest of your life. And your son and daughter-in-law, they learn a very expensive lesson about greed and respect. It was perfect. It was exactly what Frank would have done. He always said the best revenge was living well, but he also believed that people who tried to cheat you needed to face consequences, or they'd never learn. Let's do it, I said. Let's do it exactly like that. Over the next 4 days, Helen and I moved fast. We got a real estate agent named Carla who specialized in quick sales. We had the house appraised. We listed it on Thursday at $435,000, slightly below market value, to attract fast offers. By Friday afternoon, we had 3 offers. By Saturday morning, we accepted an offer from a nice young couple named Ryan and Michelle Chin for $440,000, all cash, 30-day close. Everything was falling into place perfectly. On Sunday morning, I packed my things. I took my clothes, my photos, my important documents, Frank's wedding ring, and some of his things I couldn't bear to leave behind. Everything else I left. The furniture, the kitchenware, everything Frank and I had accumulated over 40 years of marriage. I figured Jessica wanted it all so badly, she could have it. For now. Michael came to my room as I was packing. Mom, are you sure you want to do this? Maybe we can work something out. Maybe Jessica will compromise. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he become so weak? When had he stopped being the strong, independent boy I'd raised and turned into this passive man who let his wife make all the decisions, even cruel ones? Michael, I said quietly, there's nothing to work out. Jessica made her decision. She wants me gone. I'm going. I just hope someday you'll understand what you allowed to happen here. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but Jessica called from downstairs. Michael, help me move Dot's boxes to the curb. He left without another word. I took one last look around the room I'd shared with Frank for 30 years.
The room where we talked about our dreams, made plans for retirement, held each other through good times and bad. And then I walked out. Jessica was standing by the front door with her arms crossed, a satisfied smile on her face. "Finally," she said. "I was starting to think we have to call the police after all." I didn't respond. I just walked past her, got into my car, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw her standing on the porch, watching me go, probably thinking she'd won. I checked into a hotel near Helen's office. It was actually nice, having a quiet space to myself, not walking on eggshells, not feeling unwelcome in every room. That first night, I ordered room service, watched whatever I wanted on TV, and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, Helen called. "The Chins can close in 3 weeks instead of 30. They're pre-approved for everything. They're so excited about the house. How do you want to handle informing your son and daughter-in-law?" I want to be there when it happens. I want to see their faces. Helen paused. "Are you sure? It might be emotional. It might be ugly." I thought about Jessica's face when she kicked me out, the coldness, the cruelty. "I'm sure," I said. "When can we do it?" Helen checked her calendar. "The closing is scheduled for next Friday at 10 a.m. How about we show up at the house on Saturday morning, 10 a.m.? That gives them a week to process and find somewhere else to go. You, me, Carla, the real estate agent, and the Chins. We'll present them with the sale documents and the notice to vacate." 1 week. In 1 week, I would walk back into my house, not as a tenant, not as a guest, but as the owner selling her property. I spent that week getting everything else in order. I found a beautiful condo in a 55-plus community about 20 minutes away from my old neighborhood. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen, a small balcony with a view of the community gardens. It was perfect. I put in an offer. It was accepted. Everything was aligning. Saturday morning came. I met Helen, Carla, and the Chins at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the house. Ryan and Michelle were so excited, talking about their plans for the backyard, what colors they'd paint the rooms. They had no idea about the drama they were walking into. Helen had briefed them that the current occupants didn't know about the sale yet, that there had been some family complications, but they took it in stride. "Family stuff is always complicated," Michelle said sympathetically. If only she knew. At exactly 10 a.m., we pulled up to the house in 3 cars, Helen, Carla, the Chins, and me. I walked up to the door of my house and rang the doorbell. My own doorbell. I heard stuff fits inside, and then the door opened. Jessica stood there, in yoga pants and a tank top, her hair in a messy bun. When she saw me, her face went from confusion to anger in about 2 seconds. "What are you doing here, Dot? I told you you're not welcome anymore." "Mrs. Thompson," Helen stepped forward, all business. "I'm Helen Martinez, Mrs. Peterson's attorney. This is Carla Wong, her real estate agent, and these are Ryan and Michelle Chin. May we come in? We have some important legal documents to share with you." Jessica looked at us, group of us, clearly trying to figure out what was happening. "Legal documents? What are you talking about? Dot doesn't have any legal claim here. Michael, get out here." Michael appeared from the kitchen. When he saw me, he looked guilty. Good. "Mom, what's going on?" Helen didn't wait for Jessica to invite us in. She just walked forward, forcing Jessica to either let us enter or physically block a lawyer, which most people don't have the nerve to do. We filed into the living room. My living room, the room where Frank and I had celebrated Christmases, birthdays, anniversaries. The Chins were looking around with interest, probably already imagining their furniture here. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," Helen began, pulling documents from her briefcase. "I need to inform you that this property has been sold. The closing occurred yesterday. The new owners, Mr. and Mrs. Chin, are here to introduce themselves and to inform you that you have 28 days to vacate the premises." The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica was staring at Helen like she'd started speaking a foreign language. Michael had gone pale. "Sold? This house was sold? By who?" "You can't sell this house. Michael owns half of it, and I've been paying all the bills. This is fraud."
Helen remained calm, professional. "Mrs. Thompson, there is no fraud. Mrs. Peterson is the sole legal owner of this property. The house was owned jointly by her and her late husband with right of survivorship. Upon his death 4 years ago, full ownership transferred to Mrs. Peterson. Your husband, Michael, has no legal ownership stake in this property. He never did." She handed Jessica a stack of documents. "Here is the original deed.
showing joint tenancy with right of survivorship. Here is the recorded transfer upon Frank Peterson's death. Here is the listing agreement, here is the purchase agreement, and here is your notice to vacate. Everything is legal, everything is documented, and everything is final. Jessica was shaking, her face turning red. This is insane. Michael, tell them about your father's will. Tell them you inherited the house. Michael was reading the documents Helen had provided, his face getting paler and paler. Mom, he said quietly, is this real? Do you really own the whole house? Did you really sell it? I spoke for the first time since entering my home. Yes, Michael, I really own the whole house. I've owned it completely since your father died. And yes, I really sold it to these lovely people who I'm sure will take much better care of it than the people who've been living here lately. Jessica turned on me, her face twisted with rage. You bitter old woman, you did this because I kicked you out. This is revenge. This is petty and cruel and vindictive. I looked at her calmly. No, Jessica, what you did was cruel. Kicking me out of my own home while I was still grieving my husband, charging me rent to live in my own house, turning my son against me. That was cruel. This is just business. I'm selling my property. That's my right as the owner. The fact that you're living in it is unfortunate, but you'll have almost a month to find somewhere else. That's more notice than you gave me. Ryan Chen stepped forward, trying to ease the tension. Listen, we don't want to cause problems. We love the house. We'll work with you on the timeline if you need a few extra days to find somewhere to go. We're not trying to be difficult. But Jessica was beyond reason. She lunged forward, actually tried to grab me. You're not taking this house. I've put 4 years of my life into this place. I've decorated, I've maintained it, I've made it a home. You can't just sell it out from under us. Helen stepped between us. Mrs. Thompson, I suggest you calm down. Assaulting Mrs. Peterson would not help your situation. You have no legal standing here. The house has been sold. The deal is final. You need to vacate within 28 days, or we will begin eviction proceedings, which will be much more expensive and damaging for you. I suggest you use this time to find suitable housing and make arrangements to move. Michael finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. Mom, where are we supposed to go? We don't have money for first and last month's rent somewhere else. We can't afford to move. Jessica quit her job last year to be a stay-at-home mom. We're living on just my salary. How are we supposed to come up with moving money in less than a month? And there it was, the truth. They'd been living beyond their means in a house they thought was theirs, spending money they didn't have, making plans based on assets they never owned. And now reality was crashing down. Michael, you should have thought about that before you let your wife kick me out. You should have thought about that before you let her treat me like a tenant in my own home. You should have thought about a lot of things, but you chose Jessica over your mother. You chose cruelty over kindness, and now you're facing the consequences. Jessica was crying now, ugly tears streaming down her face. You're going to make your own granddaughter homeless. Sophie will have to leave her school, her friends, her home. What kind of grandmother does that? That cut. That really cut. Because Sophie was innocent in all of this. She hadn't done anything wrong. She was just a little girl who loved her grandmother and didn't understand why she'd been kept away from me. But I couldn't let that guilt control me. I couldn't sacrifice my own well-being and future for people who had shown me nothing but contempt. Sophie will be fine, I said, though my voice shook. Children are resilient, and maybe this will teach her an important lesson about treating family with respect. Maybe she'll grow up to be a better person than her mother. Carla, the real estate agent, spoke up. If I may interject, there are resources available for families facing housing transitions. I can provide you with information about emergency housing assistance, rental aid programs, and landlords who accept applications from people in transition. This doesn't have to be a disaster if you're proactive. Jessica ignored her, still focused on me. I want to talk to you alone, Dot. Everyone else, get out. I need to speak to my mother-in-law privately. Helen shook her head. I don't advise that, Dorothy. But I nodded. It's okay. Everyone can wait outside. Jessica and I need to have this conversation. Helen, Carla, and the Chens reluctantly filed out. Michael stayed. You too, Michael, Jessica snapped. He looked between us and then left,
Defeated, Jessica and I stood in my living room, alone for the first time since she'd kicked me out. "Please," she said, and her voice was different now, smaller, desperate. "Please, don't do this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for how I treated you. I was stressed. I was overwhelmed with taking care of Sophie and managing the house and everything. I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair. But please, don't make us leave. We'll sign whatever agreement you want. We'll pay whatever rent you want. We'll treat you better, I promise. Just please don't sell the house." I looked at this woman who had made my life miserable for months, who had exploited my grief and my kindness, who had turned my son into a stranger, and I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just a cold, empty certainty that I was doing the right thing. "Jessica, you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there are consequences. If I had been weak enough, desperate enough, scared enough, you would have kept exploiting me for years. You would have kept taking and taking until there was nothing left to take." "That's not true," she protested, but her eyes told a different story. "It is true. And even if I believed you were genuinely sorry, which I don't, the damage is done. You can't unbreak something this badly. You can't treat someone the way you treated me and then just apologize it all away when you realize you need them. That's not how life works. That's not how respect works. That's not how family works."
"So that's it?" she said, anger creeping back into her voice. "You're just going to destroy us, ruin our lives, make your son and granddaughter suffer because your feelings got hurt?" I smiled, but it was a sad smile. "No, Jessica, I'm not destroying you. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. I'm making sure that I have a secure, comfortable place to live for the rest of my life. I'm making sure that no one can take advantage of me again. What happens to you and Michael is a consequence of your own choices, not my revenge." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact moment she realized she'd lost, that there was no argument, no manipulation, no tears that would change my mind. "I hate you," she said quietly. "I hate you so much." I nodded. "I know. But I don't hate you, Jessica. I actually feel sorry for you. Because you had a chance to have a good mother-in-law, someone who would have helped you and supported you and loved your daughter, and you threw it away for nothing. You threw it away because you were greedy and unkind, and that's something you'll have to live with." I walked to the door and opened it. Helen and the others were waiting on the porch. "We're done here," I said. "Mrs. Thompson understands the situation." We all walked back to our cars. As we drove away, I looked back one last time and saw Jessica standing in the doorway, watching us leave. This time, I was the one in control. This time, I was the one walking away with power. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind. Michael called me twice, begging me to reconsider. I didn't answer. He left voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. "Mom, please, we're looking at apartments and we can't afford any of them. Jessica's applying for jobs, but nothing's coming through fast enough. We might have to move in with her parents in Florida. Please, Mom, please don't do this to Sophie." But I held firm. This wasn't about Sophie. This was about teaching Michael and Jessica that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people like garbage and expect no repercussions. Helen kept me updated on everything. Jessica tried to fight the eviction, claiming she had tenant rights since she'd been living there for 4 years, but Helen shut that down immediately. She never had a formal lease, she never paid rent to the actual owner, and the property has been legally sold. She has no standing. Jessica then tried to claim that all the improvements she'd made to the house entitled her to compensation. Helen laughed at that one. "What improvements? Hanging curtains? That's not a capital improvement. That's decorating." On day 26, 2 days before they were supposed to be out, Michael showed up at my hotel. I don't know how he found out where I was staying, but there he was,
standing in the lobby, looking haggard and defeated. I agreed to meet him in the coffee shop downstairs. We sat across from each other, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. "Mom, I need to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago." I waited. He took a deep breath. "When Dad died, the lawyer did tell me about the joint tenancy. He told me you owned the whole house, but Jessica, she was pregnant with Sophie, and we were broke. And when you offered to let us move in, she saw an opportunity. She convinced me that we should act like we owned part of it, that eventually you'd die and it would be ours anyway, so why not start treating it like ours now? I went along with it because I was weak. I am weak. I let her control everything, make all the decisions. I stopped being my own person and just became an extension of Jessica's ambitions." The confession didn't make me feel better. If anything, it made me feel worse. "So you knew, Michael? You knew the whole time that you were lying to me, that Jessica was charging me rent for my own house?" He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I knew, and I hated myself for it. Every month when you paid that money, I felt sick. But I couldn't stand up to Jessica. I couldn't disappoint her, and I convinced myself that it wasn't really stealing because you'd offered to let us live there anyway. But it was stealing, and it was cruel, and Mom, I am so sorry." I looked at my son, this man I'd raised to be strong and honest, and I barely recognized him. "Michael, I can forgive you for being weak. I can even forgive you for letting Jessica manipulate you. But what I can't forgive is that you let her kick me out. You sat there on that couch and said nothing while your wife threw your mother onto the street. You had so many chances to stand up, to do the right thing, and you chose her over me every single time." "I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. We're moving to Florida tomorrow. Jessica's parents said they can stay with them until we get back on our feet. I'm going to start looking for jobs down there. And Mom, I'm leaving Jessica." My head snapped up. "What?" He nodded. "I can't do this anymore. I can't be this person anymore. She's already talking about how we're going to sue you, how we're going to fight this, how we're going to make you pay. She doesn't get it. She doesn't understand that what she did was wrong, and I can't spend the rest of my life with someone like that. Sophie deserves better. I deserve better." "Michael," I said, carefully, "don't make a life decision because you're angry or desperate right now. Think about Sophie. Think about what's best for her." He shook his head. "I am thinking about Sophie. And what's best for her is having a father who stands up for what's right, even when it's hard. I'm going to file for divorce. I'm going to ask for joint custody, and I'm going to rebuild my relationship with you, if you'll let me. I know I don't deserve it. I know I've destroyed your trust. But I'm asking anyway. I'm asking you to give me a chance to be the son you raised me to be." I wanted to say yes immediately. Every maternal instinct in my body wanted to forgive him, to welcome him back, to fix everything. But I knew that wouldn't help him. It would just be enabling him again. "Michael, I need time. A lot of time. You hurt me deeply. You betrayed me in ways I'm still processing. I can't just forget that because you're finally standing up for yourself. You need to prove that this change is real, that it's lasting. Show me through your actions, not your words."
He nodded, understanding. "I'll do that, I promise. And Mom, thank you. Thank you for not letting us get away with it. Thank you for teaching me the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn. If you just let us keep exploiting you, I never would have woken up. I never would have seen what I'd become." We parted with an awkward hug, and I watched him walk away, hoping that maybe, just maybe, something good could come from all this pain. 2 days later, moving trucks arrived at my old house. I wasn't there to watch them leave, but Helen sent me photos proving that the property had been vacated. The Chens moved in the following week,
and Carla sent me pictures of them standing in front of their new home, beaming with joy. They sent me a thank you card saying how much they loved the house and how they could feel the love that had been put into it over the years. That made me cry, but they were good tears. I closed on my condo 3 weeks after Jessica and Michael moved out. It was perfect. Bright, clean, manageable. I furnished it with new things, not hand-me-downs or old furniture carrying memories of the past. This was my fresh start, and I wanted everything to reflect that. I joined the book club in the community. I started going to water aerobics 3 times a week. I made friends with my neighbors, other women my age who had their own stories of survival and resilience. About 2 months after everything settled, I got a letter from Michael. He was in Florida, living in a small apartment, working as a project manager for a construction company. He'd filed for divorce, and Jessica was contesting everything, trying to get full custody of Sophie and maximum child support. "But I'm not backing down this time," he wrote. "I'm fighting for my daughter and for my right to be a good father to her. My lawyer says we have a strong case because I have stable employment and housing, while Jessica is still living with her parents and doesn't have a job yet." He included a drawing that Sophie had made. It was a picture of a house with 3 stick figures standing in front of it. One was labeled Daddy, one was Sophie, and one was Grandma. My heart broke and mended at the same time. He ended the letter with, "I'm not asking you to forgive me yet. I know I haven't earned that, but I want you to know that I'm trying. I'm going to therapy. I'm learning how to be strong, how to set boundaries, how to be the man Dad would have wanted me to be. And whenever you're ready, Michael and Sophie would love to see you. She asks about you every day." I put that letter on my refrigerator. I looked at it every morning while I drank my coffee. And slowly, very slowly, I started to consider the possibility of rebuilding a relationship with my son. Not the same relationship we had before. That was gone, destroyed by betrayal and weakness. But maybe something new, something more honest, something built on truth instead of obligation. 3 months after I moved into my condo, I invited Michael and Sophie to visit for a weekend. Jessica was not invited. Michael drove up from Florida, and when I opened my door and saw Sophie running toward me yelling, "Grandma!" I broke down crying. I held that little girl and realized that I'd been punishing her for her parents' sins. She was innocent. She was just a child who loved her grandmother and didn't understand why she'd been taken away. That weekend, Michael and I talked, really talked, about Frank, about our failures as parents, about how we'd enabled his weakness, and how he was working to change. He showed me the custody agreement his lawyer had drafted, asking for 50-50 custody. He showed me his apartment through photos, a modest but clean 2-bedroom where he'd set up a room for Sophie with her favorite colors and toys. He was trying. He was really trying. "Mom," he said on the last night of their visit, after Sophie had gone to sleep on my couch, "I need you to know something. What Jessica did to you, what I allowed her to do to you, it made me see how far I'd fallen, how much I'd lost myself, and losing the house, losing everything, it was the wake-up call I needed. It destroyed my life, but it saved my soul. Does that make sense?" I nodded. It makes perfect sense. Sometimes the only way to learn is through loss. Sometimes the only way to grow is through pain. Your father used to say that comfortable people never change. You have to be uncomfortable, have to hit rock bottom before you're willing to do the hard work of becoming better. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Michael asked, "Do you think you'll ever forgive me? Really forgive me? Not just say it, but mean it?" I thought about that question carefully. "I don't know, Michael. I honestly don't know. What you did, what you allowed Jessica to do to me, it broke something in me. It made me question everything about how I raised you, about whether I knew you at all. But I can tell you this. I'm willing to try. I'm willing to spend time with you, to get to know this new version of you, to see if we can build something real. That's all I can promise right now." He nodded, and I saw tears in his eyes again. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for not giving up on me completely." They left the next morning, and I stood at my door watching them drive away. Sophie waved from the back window until they turned the corner and disappeared. I went back inside my condo, my safe space, my fresh start, and I realized something profound. I didn't regret what I'd done. Not for a second. Some people might think I was too harsh. Some people might think I should have just forgiven and forgotten that family is family and you work through problems together. But those people don't understand what it's like to be exploited by the people you love most. They don't understand what it's like to be grieving alone while the people living under your roof treat you like an inconvenience. They don't understand what it's like to be kicked out of your own home by your own family. What I did wasn't just about revenge, though I'll admit that seeing Jessica's face when she realized she'd lost was satisfying. It was about teaching a lesson that words couldn't teach. It was about showing Michael and Jessica that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people like disposable conveniences and expect them to just take it forever, that even the most patient, loving, forgiving person has limits. And when you cross those limits, there's no going back to how things were.
I'm 73 years old now. It's been 5 months since I sold my house and moved into this condo. 5 months since I stood in my living room and watched Jessica's world crumble. And you know what? I'm happier than I've been in years. I have friends. I have activities. I have a life that's mine, not defined by my role as a mother or grandmother or widow. I'm just Dorothy, just Dot, just me. Michael and Sophie visit once a month now. He's still in Florida, still fighting for custody, still going to therapy, still working on becoming the man he wants to be. His divorce will be final in another 2 months. Jessica sends me hateful messages sometimes, through Michael's phone when she has it during custody exchanges. I block them without reading them. She's not my problem anymore. She's not my concern. She made her choices, and now she's living with them. Sophie told me last month that her parents are fighting about whether she should call Jessica's new boyfriend Daddy. Michael shut that down immediately, which made me proud. He's learning. Slowly, painfully, but he's learning. And Sophie, bless her heart, seems to be doing okay despite the chaos. Children are resilient, more resilient than we give them credit for. I want to tell you something important before I finish this story. Something I wish I'd learned earlier in life. Being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. Being family doesn't mean accepting abuse. Being forgiving doesn't mean having no boundaries. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. You can be a good person and still demand to be treated with respect. You can be generous and still say no. For years, I thought that being a good mother meant sacrificing everything for my child. It meant giving until there was nothing left to give. It meant accepting whatever treatment I received with grace and understanding. But I was wrong. Being a good mother also means teaching your child how to treat people. And sometimes the only way to teach that lesson is through consequences. Real, painful, life-altering consequences. If you're listening to this and you're in a situation like mine, if you have family members who are taking advantage of you, exploiting your kindness, treating you like you're worthless, I want you to hear this. You deserve better. You deserve respect. You deserve to be treated with dignity, and it's not selfish to protect yourself. It's not cruel to set boundaries. It's not wrong to say enough is enough. I also want to say this to the people who are like Jessica and Michael were, the people who are taking advantage of their parents, their family members, the people who love them. Stop. Stop now before it's too late, before you push them so far that they have no choice but to walk away completely, before you destroy a relationship that could have been beautiful. Your parents won't be around forever. Your family won't wait forever.
There will come a day when you realize what you've lost, and by then, it might be too late to fix it. Michael is getting a second chance. Not because he deserves it, but because he's doing the work to earn it. He's facing what he did. He's changing his behavior. He's fighting to be better. And that's why I'm willing to try again with him. But if he hadn't done that work, if he just expected me to forgive him because we're family, I wouldn't have given him that chance. I would have walked away and never looked back. Last week was Thanksgiving. Michael and Sophie came up for the whole weekend. We cooked together, just the three of us in my little condo kitchen. We went to the community center for the Thanksgiving potluck. We watched movies and played board games and made new memories. Michael helped me put up my Christmas decorations, and Sophie insisted on placing the angel on top of my little tree. It wasn't the same as the Thanksgiving we used to have, in the big house with all of Frank's extended family. But it was good. It was real. It was honest. On Sunday morning, as they were packing to leave, Sophie came to me with her little backpack on and said, "Grandma, I'm glad you're not sad anymore. Mommy said you were sad because you were old and alone, but you don't seem sad to me. You seem happy." Out of the mouths of babes, right? I knelt down and hugged her. "I am happy, sweetheart. I'm very happy. And you know why? Because I learned something important. I learned that being alone is not the same as being lonely. And I learned that sometimes you have to lose things to find yourself." She looked at me with those big, serious eyes. "What did you lose, Grandma?" I thought about how to answer that honestly without burdening a 5-year-old with adult problems. I lost my big house and some people I thought were friends. But I found something better. I found myself. I found out that I'm stronger than I thought I was. She nodded like that made perfect sense. "My teacher says that when a caterpillar loses its cocoon, it becomes a butterfly. Is that what happened to you?" I laughed and cried at the same time. Yes, baby, that's exactly what happened to me. She hugged me tight and whispered, "You are a beautiful butterfly, Grandma." And then she skipped off to the car, leaving me standing there with tears streaming down my face and my heart so full I thought it might burst. My name is Dorothy Peterson. I'm 73 years old. My daughter-in-law kicked me out of my own house without mercy. A week later, I came back with a buyer and took it all away from her, and I don't regret it. Not 1 second. Because that action, that choice, that moment when I stood up for myself, it changed everything. It destroyed my old life, but it gave me a new one, a better one, a life where I'm not a victim, not a doormat, not someone to be exploited and discarded, a life where I'm just Dot, strong, independent butterfly Dot. If this story resonated with you, if you've been in a situation like mine, or if you know someone who has, leave a comment. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Tell me your story. Tell me if I did the right thing or if I went too far. Tell me about your own family struggles, your own moments of standing up for yourself, your own butterfly transformations. Because these stories need to be told. These truths need to be shared. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs to hear that it's okay to protect yourself. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to say no, even to family, especially my family. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for staying with me through all the pain and anger and eventual healing. And remember, you're stronger than you think. You're worth more than you've been told. And you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, no matter who you are, no matter how old you are, no matter what your relationship is to the people who are hurting you. Set those boundaries. Protect your peace. And if you need to, don't be afraid to sell the house out from under them. Sometimes that's the only language people understand. Until next time, this is Dot, signing off. Take care of yourselves, stand up for yourselves, and never, ever let anyone make you feel small in your own life.